I'm so glad that you're here for the second discussion of digital accessibility ethics, disability inclusion in all things tech. Whether you joined us in May or this is your first meeting, welcome. Our community has now grown to more than 3,400 accessibility professionals, designers, developers, advocates, and allies. And it's incredible to see the conversations continue to grow. This book has sparked some amazing discussions. It was released on May 6th of 2026 and is 368 pages and is available in hardcover, paperback, and ebook. Are you guys still working on the audiobook, Lainey?
We have an update on that. When you turn it over to me, I can start with that if you'd like.
Awesome. I was just curious. I've had a couple people ask me too. And of course, I'd like to also introduce my my co-manager, John Farrell, who is on with us today, and thank him for everything he does behind the scenes to help make this community successful. We really appreciate you, John. And of course, I would introduce Ricky Onsman, but he couldn't be with us today, so we're sending good vibes and love out to Ricky. I'm thrilled to welcome back my co-host, Lainey Feingold, one of the editors of Digital Accessibility Ethics. Lainey has been instrumental in bringing together this remarkable collection of authors, and we're incredibly grateful she's joining us today. I will let her take over in just a moment, but I thought while I had the opportunity, I could share a couple of my favorite reflections. So over the past month, I've been posting different chapter highlights. I've been kind of bouncing around a little bit just because I wanted to pre-read some that I knew the authors were going to be on today. And one of my favorites was chapter 8, the Empower All Minds. I loved how practical this chapter was. The simple reminders using the plain language and the left aligning body text, the captioning videos, it just really resonated with me and everything I try to do building accessible websites every day. So I was super grateful for that. In chapter 20, I read that one recently by Haven Gurman. Her story about the delivery robots blocking the sidewalks was really illustrative and really just helped me to understand how innovations can be amazing, and also creating those extra barriers every day and having to, rethink how we're introducing new tech and new barriers with those new tech items. So definitely thought-provoking. I've loved every piece of this. Chapter 31, I know Chancey's probably on with us today. I'll let Lainey introduce her and the other authors. But that one really got me thinking as well about public digital amenities, the ATMs, restaurant ordering, digital delivery, like all this new tech we've got out here and how amazing it is, but how we need to think about the accessibility ethics of those items as well. So with that, I'll go ahead and hand it off to our co-host, Lainey Feingold, who will introduce today's authors and guide us through the discussion.
Thanks, Crystal. Thank you everyone who's here, authors and readers and potential readers. As I said on LinkedIn, everyone's welcome to the Accessibility Book Club, whether you've read the book or not. Quick update on the audiobook. I have repeatedly said that we haven't been able to find an audiobook publisher, but we are extremely grateful to Perkins Talking Book Library, and they are going to help us produce the audiobook. They're going to be in charge of the recordings. And Laura Brady, who wanted to be on today, she's a co-author of the Accessible Publishing chapter. She is going to take those recordings and turn it into a book and make sure the book is in all the places we need it to be. So I'm really relieved about that. So so today we have one editor author and 3 other authors who are prepared to share a short, like we did last time, couple minutes about their chapter. I will just start off, for those of you who weren't here last time, is that this book offers a digital accessibility ethics framework. It's actionable, it's a strategy, it's values driven, made up of values, actions, questions. It's not to stay on the paper, it's for all of us to use. And our authors applied that framework to 28 of the chapters. We have 4 foundational chapters. So I'm really excited to share the authors and editor Chancey Fleet with us. Chancey, I don't know if you want to change it. Your camera's sort of on a vertical. So yeah, and you're on mute. So in case you want to change that, you can. You don't have to, of course. So Chancey is one of the co-editors along with Reginae Gilbert, who couldn't be here today. I think she's traveling. And the three of us are the co-editors of this book. We're also 3 of the 39 authors. So Chancey, I want to turn it over to you, and you have the floor, or the Zoom screen, as it may be.
And while she's getting her audio on, just a quick housekeeping note for anyone that has questions for any of our authors, please feel free to post those in the chat or raise your hand and we can call on you as well.
All right. Hey, it's Chancey. Sorry about that, folks. I was testing a game that needed a different orientation and I forgot how disorienting that can be to people who can actually see the screen. So it's been a real honor to get to know all of the authors and be part of the project of editing this book. It's my hope that when you come across as an individual or as a member of a team, a situation that requires accessibility advocacy, or when you're trying to weigh the pros and cons of your approach, you'll find a chapter in this book for almost every digital accessibility related situation. And even if you don't find something on the specific situation, as Lainey said, the framework that lays out some core values to be guided by and actions that can be taken in alignment with those values, it's really important. As advocates, we all know, as accessibility allies and advocates, how tiring it can be and that the work is never done and that the goalposts are always moving. And it's even more tiring if you feel like you're doing that alone and you've got to reinvent the wheel. This book is a way to make sure that we're all in community and none of us has to do it alone. And we have that framework to hold us up and to guide us and to help us when we need to be in that difficult position of needing to guide others. I am really excited about public digital amenities because as a blind person, I've thought an awful lot about the friction that I feel or don't feel in the real world. I learned early on that the world is not built with non-visual users in mind. And as I was raised with good mobility instruction, I learned that I could use my cane and later my guide dog to go anywhere I wanted and eliminate a lot of that friction that I felt when I didn't know how to do things. And that all worked out because I had advocates in my corner. But orientation and mobility is only part of the story. Increasingly, as we pass through different parts of our day in the real world, interactions that used to take place in a low-tech way or between human beings are going to public digital amenities. And let's be honest, quite often they are just screens. I remember when the iPhone came out, how I heard that it was going to be possible for blind people to use touch screens. And I thought to myself, that sounds nice, but I don't think that's really going to work. No blind person is going to want to use a flat pane of glass. Come on now. And then the iPhone came out and it changed the way that blind people interact with information forever. We are surrounded by public screens and other amenities that we have to use in common, whether they're points of sale, whether they're the ATMs that Lainey personally worked diligently to ensure can be accessible, ways that you can save some time by checking yourself into a hotel or checking out of a grocery store, or interactive maps that help you explore a location or plan your visit. Those have the power to ice out disabled people. If they're audio announcements and they're not visual, that's icing out deaf people. If it's screens that don't talk, that's icing out blind people. If it's a 30-step process to order a hamburger, that's icing out a lot of people with attention and cognitive disabilities. But just like I had that moment of, wow, this could actually work for me and be good and better than I even dreamed, we've gotten as a society really advanced in code, in hardware, in software, and there's no technical reason or business reason or budget reason why we can't be delivering experiences that aren't just okay, but actually better than what came before them. But too often the opposite is happening. Screens are getting slapped up and other amenities that really concentrate on one modality of delivering information, and the way that they're delivering even in that one modality is full of clutter, cognitive overwhelm and unnecessary friction. And I want people to think about moving through their days, all of the screens we touch, all of the announcements we hear, all of the automated technologies around us, how they're built now, who they're inviting in, who they're icing out, and how that could be different. I'll close with telling my favorite story that I can't shut up about the worst digital amenity meltdown I've ever seen in my life. So the National Federation of the Blind is a member organization. There's a convention every year with about 3,000 blind people. And they had some very accessible destination elevators at this convention. Really top of the line, wonderful destination elevators. You could punch in the floor you were going to, and a clear voice would tell you which car to go to. And then they would give you a little extra time if you had touched the accessibility button to board the elevator. The doors would just close at twice as slowly. And they tested it with 3 or 4 blind people, and they got rave reviews. Everybody, I assume, I was not in this meeting, but I think everybody loved these elevators. Worked great. Then 500 blind people showed up. Wow, nice elevators. Another 500 blind people showed up. These are great elevators, but they're a little slow. By the time 3,000 blind people showed up to use the destination elevators, they had stopped to a standstill. People were leaving the hotel for another hotel to get away from them. People were going up and down 30 flights of stairs. What went wrong? The designers had assumed that the blind people would always be in the minority and there would never be too many of them. As it turns out, when you slow down every elevator door and there's enough people requesting the slowdown, and when you put in some code to help out that blind person by making sure whatever elevator shows up for them is going to be next to where they're standing, which is a really nice thought to have, that makes the whole system melt down to a point that it just says no cars are available. The story there is to always be improving. I don't think that they could have anticipated this one, but we came back the next year and it was the same way. We may think we know what accessibility is and what a good choice is. And I think that by being in community with people with disabilities and by immersing ourselves in things like these chapters, we can get closer to good choices, but it is always going to be an iterative struggle. And there's always the opportunity to do better and to learn new things. And there is more complexity in this topic than sometimes I think we even realize. Thanks.
Thank you, Chancey. We're going to have Q&A at the end, and if you have questions along the way, put it in the chat, and we will get to those. We have a couple other authors who are ready to share a couple minutes about their involvement in the book, their chapter. So next I'll call on Jess Moore Matthews, who wrote a great chapter titled Democracy for All, Addressing Accessibility Challenges for Disabled Voters. I learned a lot. Jess, over to you.
Hi, everyone. Sorry for being off camera. I am actually in the post-summer camp pickup carpool lane, and so I'm sure some folks can relate, but we are definitely dealing with a different schedule on my end as of this week, so I appreciate the grace. My name is Jess Moore Matthews. My pronouns are she, her. I am a brown-skinned woman with dark black hair in a baseball cap today. Again, it's one of those days, and I'm based in Raleigh, North Carolina. I wrote a chapter about a story that I learned kind of by chance during a class I was teaching at NYU. I teach a class called Digital Accessibility for Political Campaigns, and I invite disabled voters to come speak to my students about their experiences trying to vote, organizing around voting, and also working in elections. And I invited someone that I met actually through an engagement with Nobility, in which I was testing a website. This was a blind voter based in Minnesota who talked about, I think we asked her to share a recent voting experience she had had, and she actually talked about how excited she was to vote for the first time as a newly naturalized citizen, and the challenge after challenge after challenge that she experienced in trying to cast that ballot. And it's interesting, she spoke about it so casually that I was very much caught off guard because I had no idea that this had happened to her when I invited her to speak to my students. And as she was recounting the story to them, I just was struck by how just unjust it was that here's this newly naturalized citizen voting for the first time. She's got her husband with her. They're taking pictures. They're doing all of these things. She's so excited to go and cast that ballot, and excited to use the accessible voting machine that she had heard about, I believe, on the local news, only to show up and find out that the poll workers had never heard of it. When they finally located the machine, it wasn't plugged in. At a certain point, they kind of asked her husband to troubleshoot. He didn't know how to work it. And essentially, when you read my chapter, you'll see that she was told to basically just tell her husband who she wanted to vote for, and he had to do that for her. And it was a really infuriating experience for her, but also as I was listening, I was infuriated, and actually circled back with her after the class to chat about it. So when I first heard from friend and mentor Regine about writing and contributing to this book, this story was fresh in my mind, and obviously wanted to share it so that more folks understand what disabled voters go through when they try to participate in democracy. So it was an interesting experience to re-interview Hina for this piece, but also I'd say really meaningful to think through the ethics framework about how we can prevent situations like hers from happening again. And she was very much involved in that brainstorm. She shared, different innovations, digital innovations that would have been incredible for her. And my hope is that folks will read this chapter and not only implement some of her ideas, but also that the makers of the voting machine, the accessible voting machine, will maybe think about maybe an onboarding or training for the states in which they are located. Lainey may remember us reaching out to the company that made the machine, asking if we could use a photo. And they were very much concerned about how we were going to frame the machine, and ended up, saying, no, I don't think so. But my hope is that even that question kind of triggered some sort of conversation between these tech companies and the states and the local election offices that they may be engaging with.
Yeah, thank you, Jess. I forgot about that picture thing. The book does have images, and we did have to get permissions to use all the images. And that was disappointing because it would have been great to have a picture of the voting machine. Jess did a really great job applying the framework to the story and the experience that she just shared. And I really want to thank the publisher for those reading in the paperback version. The takeaways are at the end. We call them digital accessibility ethics takeaways. There's one for every chapter that the authors wrote, and they're set off in like a blue box so they stand out. And the first thing is that the author chose the values. So Jess wrote about fairness and avoiding harm and privacy and a couple other values. And then the author said, okay, what actions can we all take? And what questions can we ask so this kind of thing doesn't happen? So, I have this dream, and I've actually done this with a couple of people already, like, yeah, this chapter should go to the people making the voting machines. They should go to the state election officers. And, it's on all of us. Like, how can we think about getting this framework in the hands, not just of committed people who know about accessibility, like everyone on this call, but in the hands of other people who really need to know about accessibility. So Jess, thank you so much. Especially thank you for calling from the carpool lane. That is a historic first, and I really appreciate it. And yeah, so, okay, next I want to call on Margot Jaffe, who wrote the cognitive accessibility chapter that Crystal referred to in the beginning. Like Crystal, I really learned a lot about writing and I think everything Margot says, it's just one of those curb cut examples. Like, yes, it's good for accessibility, and it's also good. It's good for accessibility for disabled people to make your content and tools accessible for people with cognitive disabilities. Also good for all of us. Margot, over to you.
Thank you, Lainey. Hi, everyone. It's great to be here. Thank you, Crystal, for organizing this space for us. And it's great to see everyone who joined this meeting. And I just want to say thank you for being here and the work that you're doing in our accessibility field. My name is Margot Jaffe, she, her pronouns. I'm based in Seattle, Washington. I'm a white woman with short bob hair, tortoiseshell glasses, and a gray pinstripe blazer. And I am wearing a shirt that says Empower All Minds. It was an honor to be a part of this project, both as an accessibility professional and also personally as a neurodivergent woman, as a disability advocate. And it was very important for me to do as good of a job as I could. I felt like it was a big job because even in the accessibility field, as someone who's worked within an accessibility team within a company and then also outside in the community, I've seen that sometimes cognitive accessibility is often a lower priority. So it was a big job. There was a lot to cover in this one chapter. There's so many other people doing very important work in this space. So we would need a whole book really or more to do it justice. And there was also the tension of how can I write a chapter in an academic book within the constraints of an academic book format that can be accessible for folks like myself who might struggle to read wall of words books. So I'm really excited to hear that the audio version is going to be available. So in my chapter, I write about why cognitive accessibility is important. I included some sample actions folks can take because I really wanted to make it concrete as well, even though it is an ethics book. So it's more about kind of making an argument, but I did really want to make it practical so that no matter where people are in whatever job they're in, they can take one small step to start practicing. And I wanted to highlight different people and projects that were making a difference. So I'm going to end with that. I'm glad to be in conversation with all of you, and I really want to hear from you. Any reflections you have about what resonated or even what was missing, what you disagreed with. And to that note, any resources that you think are great that we're missing that I can add to the website page, because I have a website page about this chapter where I was able to link a lot of resources and sources so people that do want to learn more can. And so if you have something that you've seen or you want me to highlight, I'd be happy to include it. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Margot. It is true that it is an ethics book, and it has a lot of pages, and the word ethics is in big blue letters. It may be intimidating, but I want to quote Margot, or actually I want to let Margot say what she put on LinkedIn about not being afraid of this book, because I kind of disagree with you that it's an academic book. Feels academic, has a word ethics, but what did you advise your LinkedIn followers how to talk about this book?
I guess what I meant was like it's an academic publisher, and the way, and I really wanted to try and write it in a way that wasn't as much plain language as possible. But what I said on LinkedIn was basically like, if you're someone like me, you might get intimidated when you see a 400+ page book with lots of words in small print. But I told people it's kind of like tapas when you go to a tapas restaurant where you can try like all different little plates. Is that what I said? No, I said it was a TV show.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, now I just had a different metaphor. It's kind of like a sampler, you know, like I love that you can open up the book. You can just kind of open up the book to any chapter. And I love that the chapters are short. And so it's kind of like, this is what I said on LinkedIn. It's like I love the TV shows that are like an ensemble cast with lots of different characters, and then different episodes kind of go into different character storylines. That's kind of how it felt to me. It's like a show with different characters and everyone has their own cool story. And so even if this big book feels intimidating, even if you just open up, maybe some of the chapters are a few pages, so you can just read one chapter and start there and then see what else catches your interest.
I have quoted you so often on that. Like Margot Joffe says, think of it as your favorite TV show. And, you know, gives people comfort. Also want to quote Derek Shields, who is our Impact Campaign Manager, who I think had to leave this meeting. But he always says, we're here to make ethics cool again. And I think that's also a, you know, kind of a tagline. I welcome all tagline suggestions, because we have to learn, and we're all learning together how to talk about these issues in sort of bite size. We have to go deep, but we have to go shallow for people who are brand new to our issues. So we have some other authors here. I didn't ask anyone else, I don't think, did I ask anybody else to be prepared with a few minutes? I don't think so, but let me call on the other authors just so everybody knows who's here. And then if there's time, if there's not too many questions, we can have the other authors dive into their chapters. So just calling them as I see them. First, I see Sherry. Go ahead.
Hey, everybody. I'm Sherry Bernhaber. Pronouns are she, her. I wrote the chapter on procurement, and I think the two most important takeaway points are that you're not doing accessibility in an ethical manner when you're only doing it risk-based. There's too many companies that say, oh, the public's more likely to sue us, so we're going to take care of them first, and nothing ever happens for the employees. The other is I urge people to take a very expansive view of what procurement constitutes. It's not just an exchange of money from a department to a vendor. It is that, but it is also the use of open source. It's building custom tools internally, and it's people who go out and sign up for little micro subscriptions and free accounts on Figma and things of that nature that never go through an official procurement process, but they still impact other employees as if it was something that had been purchased.
Yes, thank you. I really learned from that too. And Sherry has a great title of her chapter that begins with "Don't buy broken things."
Don't buy broken things.
Which is, you know, talk about sound bites. That's one of them, because if you don't buy accessible, you're buying broken. Okay. Also, Matt May is here. Matt, do you want to introduce yourself and say something about your chapter?
I am. Hi there. I'm Matt May. I wrote a chapter on burnout as an accessibility ethical problem. Talked about, you know, the chapter talks about the phenomenon of accessibility professionals having a history of not having the authority to do their own work, but also having the responsibility when anything goes that way, and almost allowing corporations in particular to skate by on on their own reputations at the expense of the professional reputation of the accessibility practitioner, and how that builds up over time to burnout. So I cover a lot of different things that some of which I've experienced in my professional career, and what I've seen from others that I have helped with through some like office hours that I do, to establish an ethical boundary, and to make sure that the work that they're doing is actually productive and not kind of a heat sink for negative reputational problems on the part of the organization that they're working for.
Okay, thank you, Matt. And Josh, we have two Josh authors. This is Josh Mealy. Go ahead, Josh.
Hi, folks. I'm turning on my camera. Hi, Josh Mealy here. I wrote chapter 10. I don't have the title right in front of me. Maybe Lainey does. But it is about the digital accessibility ethics of accessibility hackathons and student capstone projects. And this has been a sort of ongoing issue in my work. I'm a designer of accessible technologies and a researcher, and I'm often in academic contexts where I'm mentoring, advising, and supporting students that are not themselves disabled, but who are interested in contributing something positive to the lives of people with disabilities, sort of, allies in the making. And they're also in very often people who really know very little about the disability experience. And so this is a perfect situation for a real meltdown of technology, where people build things that not only don't address the actual needs of people with disabilities because the need wasn't fully understood, but where the students, professors, and advisors, and even the PR departments of their universities think that it's just great, and so create a lot of buzz and hype and hyperbolic language around how these vibrating shoes are going to change the lives of blind people forever, and they won't. So my chapter is really about there's a couple of sections in the chapter. One is what could go wrong, and I just sort of covered the what could go wrong aspect. And then there's lots that can go right. Hackathons and capstone projects are actually amazing tools for teaching, giving students an opportunity for hands-on work, especially in working with and learning from people who are knowledgeable about disability, accessibility, and design, is an incredible and powerful experience for young and for anyone who is interested in learning about the do's and don'ts of disability and design. And so really the chapter is about how to do it right. What are the ethical considerations in setting up the infrastructure and organization of an accessibility hackathon? Who needs to be not just at the hackathon, but who needs to be planning the hackathon? What considerations need to be taken into account? How do people, and the bottom line is people with disabilities and people who are knowledgeable about accessibility and disability need to be involved at every level. People who have lived experience, as well as people who have experience in the field, need to be not only mentors on the ground at sort of the day of or the semester of, and need to be integrated, not just sort of feeding back at the end, but also need to be advising on what kinds of tools do teams use for ideation that are going to be accessible. What kinds of communication tools are used in the lead up to the hackathon or the project? How do we make sure that the tools that we're using in the event or the institution aren't inadvertently excluding people with disabilities who are going to be the most valuable mentors and advisors on how to build meaningful and valuable technologies that really can make a difference in people's lives. And of course, technology, and design for disability is always done best collaboratively and ideally with accessibility professionals and people who have a knowledge of disability culture and disability lived experience, not just advising, but doing the doing. So disabled students should be the first line of students learning in an accessibility hackathon, not just there as quote unquote subject matter experts. Lainey, since I don't have the book here with me, maybe you could if you do, maybe you could mention some of the takeaways I listed. I don't have them memorized.
Yeah, I will get to that after yes, I will do that.
Or not.
I want to make sure we have plenty of time for questions. There's one more person I want to introduce who is Mackenzie Shields. Mackenzie, are you there behind your M?
Yes, I am.
Okay, good. Mackenzie works at Forward Works, Derek's consulting company. And Mackenzie, why don't you share what you're doing to help this effort, which is a lot.
All right. I help my dad, Derek Shields, with the Impact campaign. So I'm basically the person that's creating all the graphics behind the scenes and helping the book become known from everyone around the world.
And doing a great job at it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much to you and the whole family, the whole company. Yeah, I saw Mary Beth here before, but I don't think she still is here. If Mary Beth, if you are, show yourself. Okay, I'm going to turn it back to Crystal's team to do the Q&A, but I want to answer one thing that, is it Denis or Dennis? Denis Boudreau, is that you or somebody else? Speaking of making accessibility ethics cool again, a chapter on digital accessibility buy-in and adoption could make a nice addition to the second edition, smiley face. So I just want to say two things about that. One, in the conclusion, we say we love our 32 chapters and we envision 32 more and 32 after that, because this touches everything. We hope to read them one day. So there is no second edition planned right now, but I do have this idea to invite the universe, say, oh, wow, here's this ethics framework. We've used it in this way. You didn't cover it in the book. Here's how I think it works in my field that you didn't cover. So I want to say that. And also, we do need this idea of buy-in and adoption for accessibility, which is something that I have talked about for 30 years. My first book is about that. We need that for the ethics framework. So we are thinking about what's the best way. It's not about selling the book, it's about selling the framework, and how do we convince the people who need convincing to use it. So all these things are open for all of us. This is not a set in stone, you have to follow step by step. This is basically an offering of the 39 of us. Our field needs ethics. Digital accessibility should be in everybody else's ethics. Now let's go make it happen. So Crystal, I'll turn it back to you and John to go through the Q&A from the chat.
Great. Thanks so much, Lainey. I think I saw my question come through. If anyone else has questions, if you guys want to raise your hand or post those in the chat, we'll absolutely call on you. This is a great time for you to dive in and ask the authors that are here, or Lainey, if you have any questions directly about the framework. My question was for Margot. So chapter 8, I don't like to play any favorites, but I think I related to this one most, just because it touched on so many elements that I work with every day. So I run Graceful Web Studio. I'm a one-person web studio. And so sometimes I feel like I am designing and developing websites in a little silo. But I am a huge accessibility advocate, and a lot of people, when they come to me, they don't know what accessibility is, right? And so sometimes I explain it more in depth and try to, let them know why they need an accessibility statement and why we need to meet certain standards. And other times I just tell them that this is the way I build websites and this is why, because it makes it better for everyone, including search engines and AI bots that are also blind, right? And I try to explain it like in that little way, just to get them on board to let me do what I'm going to do anyways, whether they understand it or not. But page 129, you have this list of 14 items. These are action items that you can take, and I love this list. I actually went online and I was looking for it to see if I could find this to share in the club and put this out there. I noticed you shared your webpage, which is wonderful, but I don't see the exact list on there. So I'm just curious if you have any plans, especially around the using visual aids to help people understand. Number 6, I would love to see this in more of a visual aid context that I could share internally, externally. So just kind of throwing that out there. And do you have any plans to build more out of this chapter?
Thank you, Crystal, for the question. So I know we have some restrictions with the publisher, in terms of what we can share publicly, but I do think we can share parts of the chapter publicly with including the proper credit. And I think I talked with Lainey about that. So yes, I was actually thinking about creating some type of handout, like a one pager with like tips, taking this list as sample actions, sample tips. So I love that you brought that up. Because you hear the word cognitive accessibility and it's like so big and abstract and overwhelming and like, what does that mean? So giving people a starting place of like simple things like stop writing a whole flyer in all caps. These are things I see, right?
Yes.
Like just stop it already.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Well, I'd love to hear more. And if you do get anything, that you're putting out there as far as things that are shareable, I'd love to join in with sharing those.
Crystal, let me add one thing about that number 6 on. It's about 2 pages, and just to give people a little taste of what it takes to do a book like this. So this has, Margot's list of sample actions you can take, and each one has a icon, and then there's a few words of text. And I think Margot, I don't know, do you want to estimate? She's showing the image here, like the first one is a pencil, says use plain language, then is left align body copy, and there's horizontal lines. So I have to hand it to the publisher, Taylor and Francis. They really wanted this book to be accessible. They really worked with us. We can be honest, they would agree that, first out of the box, it wasn't, oh, this is what they did, this is good to go. No, Margot spent a tremendous amount of time very carefully looking at all the icons and making sure that they were clear and they were right. And every image of the book has the alt text showing, because we wanted to do that as an example for people who aren't used to alt text. Usually alt text is behind the pictures, as you know. So where did the alt text go with these icons? And, Marco just put a tremendous amount of work into what is basically 1 3/4. She put a tremendous amount of work, as did we all, into her whole chapter. But that in particular, the use of the images and how do you do the alt text and where do the captions go? And Margot, agree? Do you want to put an hour? Guess how many hours you spent on those 2 pages?
I have no idea, Lainey, but yes, I appreciated Lainey's understanding of why it was important to have these icons, even though it didn't fit quite seamlessly with the existing template. And also I appreciated how the publisher was very open to working with us and wanting to make sure that the book was accessible.
Yeah, I appreciated that in chapter 8, having those visual examples as well. So thank you for that. Does anyone else have any questions for our lovely authors? I didn't see anything come up in the chat. Again, feel free to raise hands. John, did you want to hop in with anything?
No, I'm very excited to hear that the audiobook will be coming out, because that is my favorite format. I'll be getting that as soon as that is in. Lainey, out of curiosity, who are you working with at Perkins?
Who are we working with at Perkins?
Yes.
Well, our connection is with Kim Charlson, who's been a longtime friend and colleague of mine, and I was actually sharing the travails of not having an audio book, and she shared what she might be able to deliver. So I don't know there's not a stage manager, a production manager. There's other people who I don't know yet, but it's thanks to Kim's connection that we were able to hook up with them. Since we have a minute, I want to say, well, first of all, I want to open. Does any of the other authors have any questions for each other? Want to share anything more broadly? Now is your chance. Anybody know any voting machine manufacturers? You get in touch with Jess and
Yeah. I had an interesting question for Chancey if she wants to share. Chancey, so I was just curious if you had any details about maybe some of the most interesting shared spaces or bloopers you've seen. Like, what is the worst out there? Is it like the restaurant ordering systems that are coming out these days, the check-in stations, kiosks?
Oh, that is a fascinating question. It's almost like asking, like, what's the worst thing happening in politics? It's a little bit hard to choose because there's so much competing for worst. I think the proliferation of screens that have the same accessibility failures over and over again is probably the most pernicious thing. You know, I remember the destination elevators because they were very dramatic and the way that they melted down was very dramatic. But the way that public digital amenities usually take away agency from people is just little by little and quiet, and it just removes privacy, autonomy, and dignity from folks. I'll draw from my experience, since I'm speaking off the top of my head, and talk about blindness. You know, if I'm going to the grocery store, I may have brought my own app that helps me shop independently and find the things I'm looking for. And I may have invested time in getting good at navigating that environment. And I may bring everything I have to the table. But if I go up to the point of sale and it's not accessible, I'm going to have to give somebody my PIN number. If I'm checking into a doctor's office and there's an on-screen intake, the questions being asked are probably not questions that I want anyone reading out loud to me in that shared office. And I could go on and come up with 10 more that the average person sees in a week. For people that have fine motor impairments, they're experiencing screens as barriers in a different way. They might really benefit from physical controls, but all we get now is screens. And I think the impact of these things being woven into our analog world is just how ubiquitous it is, and how many little frictions it puts into the average person's day.
Thank you for sharing that, Chancey. I really appreciate you diving deeper in there for us. I think Nicholas had his hand up next. Nicholas, did you have a question?
Good evening from Ghana. It's been an insightful session, and I've actually been learning from your page, and although I joined late, but my question is not a question per se. I wanted to find out how I can get a copy of the book delivered to me here in Ghana if I purchase it. That's what I wanted to find out. Thank you.
Yeah, why not? Do you want to? I could put my email in the chat, and you could. Is a chat? Can you access the chat? Or I can just tell you guys my email is lf@lflegal.com. I'll put it in the chat also. The book should be available everywhere, but I don't specifically know, you know, what platforms do you usually purchase books from?
Well, sometimes I use Amazon, or if I get most of them also do not deliver to Ghana. So if I get someone going to the States or maybe UK, I normally purchase it through the person, and then when the person is coming down to Ghana, he or she delivers it to me.
Okay, send me an email here. Send me an email, lf@lflegal.com, and I will. I might have just deleted that. Hold on.
It came through.
Is it on there? Okay, and I will make sure that you get a copy. And that also reminds me, you know, we have a chapter in the book written by two people from Kenya, and one of them lives there full time, the other partially. I got to make sure they got their books. And for the legal chapter, I interviewed a blind lawyer from Ethiopia. So I want to make sure he got his chapter. And I also quoted somebody else from Kenya who's not an author. So we have some other people from Africa, nobody from Ghana I'm thinking of. We also have one author from Nigeria. Been talking too fast. First name's Victoria. I just lost the last name. She did write a very great chapter on public relations. So thank you for bringing up that question, because I'm going to make sure the book is available in Africa, in all countries. We are writing something for the website that will also explain all the accessibility aspects of the book, the digital, the print, and soon to be the audio. I don't know how soon, but hopefully in the next 6 months, the audio. And we're in libraries around the world for people with print disabilities. And if someone tries to access the book and cannot because of any format issues, we work with the publisher to make sure they can get it in a format they need. So we don't want to leave any stone unturned in making sure people can access the book. And on that note, another thing is we want to try to break some silos with this, as I said. So if anybody here is aware of podcasts, either in your field, in your country, related to accessibility, not related, but related to any of these chapters, we want to know, and the Mackenzie and the team at ForwardWorks is going to help us, get on podcasts, be at conferences, all the things. And we need everybody's help to do that. So our doors, our emails are open for all your ideas.
Awesome. Good ask, Lainey. Dennis, you had a question for Chancey. Would you like to ask her? I can read it for you too if you'd like.
Yeah, I got it. So this is a question about a time when I noticed minimal friction in a digital amenity. So I saw one last summer that was memorable. So this is the self-checkout for Target, or Target as we like to say in the South. Normally what happens is you go into Target and you see a nice short line for the self-checkout and a big long line to go through and work with a cashier. And they rolled out really accessible keypads with a really clear voice and very clear instructions. And I was able to scan my stuff and get out without getting in the big long line. And that was beautiful.
Very cool. Okay. Great. Anyone else want to jump in with questions? We could close a little early today too, if you guys would like. Give you back 7 minutes of your lives. Okay.
Hello.
Nicholas, did you have
Yes.
something? Go ahead.
Yes. I mean, regarding with regards to the podcast, and I'll be very great to. I mean, accessibility when it comes to Ghana here is something that is now emerging, and so we do not have many people channeling that path, and it's something that for at least the past 2 years I've started working on when it comes to accessibility. Advocacy is there, but when it comes to accessibility itself, I mean, it's something that really needs a focus here in Ghana. And so I will avail myself any help that or anything that we can do to ensure that Africa and then across Ghana as well, we kind of have a voice and then get it done here. I'm into it and available to volunteer for that. Thank you.
Great. Well, I just want to say, Nicholas, that you're on this call, which means you are a firm member of the global accessibility community, and every country is at different stages. And it's really, I really want to thank you for being on, and I hope you do connect to as many of us on LinkedIn or by email. If you want to talk directly to any of the authors, you can email me and I can put you in touch with them, because this is how it grows. You know, I've been saying, yeah, we want to be talking, like I'd love to be on a big stage. I'd love Sherry to be on a big stage talking about procurement to people who've never heard about procurement. That's the one-to-many. That really matters, but also the one-to-one matters. So you have to start somewhere, and I'm glad you're here. I also want to note Caroline DeRosiers here. Hello. Thank you for being on the call. Caroline did not write a chapter, but her organization is listed as a resource, which reminds me to say the resources and the endnotes are a big part of the book. Sometimes they do feel academic. Sometimes we don't really want to read them, but Carolyn, if people aren't familiar with your organization, want to just say hello and who you are?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Carolyn Rosier, and I'm the founder of Scribely, which is a company that's focused exclusively on image description solutions. So happy to be here.
Yeah, like I said, reference in the image chapter. So, Crystal, I want to thank you and John and Ricky, who isn't here today, for giving us 2 months to share our ideas about the book, and thank all the authors who are here. I heard from many people who wanted to be here but couldn't, so I really want to thank you for recording the session, and we will all share it once you have it up. And it's a real gift to the community that you are giving us every month and every year to talk about this kind of book, so thank you.
Thank you, Lainey. Yeah, it's an absolute pleasure to run the Accessibility Book Club and get to share with so many brilliant minds. Thank you all. Thank you to the authors for sharing your expertise today and your experiences. Thank you to everyone who joined the conversation and will be watching later, spreading the word about digital accessibility ethics and the framework. I'll do a post also about the podcast and see if we can get some conversation going there. It's been an honor to spend the last 2 months reading the book. The diversity of voices, the perspectives in this book have made some incredible discussions and has really got me thinking in new ways. So I hope everyone leaves today with a few new ideas to take back into their own work. And next month, we'll be switching gears and reading Practical Web Accessibility by Ashley Firth. This is the second time we'll be reading his book. And I wanted to bring it back because it does have so many practical steps. It's great for beginners and advanced users who are really interested in the digital accessibility space and more coding and design pieces. So I'm really just excited for that discussion. Yeah, thank you all for being here today. Thank you, John. Thank you, Lainey. Thank you, the authors. We'll see you guys back in the club.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Crystal.
Good to see you guys. And then there was 3.
Awesome job. That was a fantastic discussion.
Good. Yeah, I got a little quiet there for a minute. I got scared.
It's really good. I think I told you that I'm going to do, I have so many things on the to-do list, but one of the top ones is to do a book. Actually, I'll send you the draft of this, a discussion guide for book clubs, because it dawned on me last month, like, it's a collaborative book. Reading it in collaboration with other people is nice. It's a smart idea. You can learn. So we've already been on one at University of Washington. Now there's a Raleigh meetup who's going to have a book group about it. And I think it's a good way to sort of share the ideas, because it is kind of intimate. It's a fat book, you know. And
it is. You know what's funny though? You had so many authors. I was looking at the comparison. Look at these books. They're like exactly the same.
Wait, what's
this is a Practical Web Accessibility. This one by Ashley Firth that we're going to read next month.
I think that one's bigger.
I actually
It is
490 pages.
It is a huge book. I'm glad I already read it because I don't think I'm going to be able to get through 400 pages again next month.
Yeah, but it does have large text and a lot of graphics. But yeah, it's dense though, but good for people who definitely want to get into the nitty-gritty of the development design side. So
yeah, I mean, we have so many books in the field. That's why I might have mentioned last time, like I ran into someone, she goes, oh, what an interesting topic. Has anyone ever done a podcast about accessibility? And I'm like, we've had books for a quarter of a century. So it's good that people are still writing them. And yeah. So anyways, you've been great, Crystal, your graphics, my husband's written 6 books and I show him all your graphics. Oh my God, every author needs a Crystal Scott to
right on. Thanks, Lainey.
Be the megaphone. And yeah, so thank you again. And I'll look forward to when you have the video up, I will share it and we'll put it out.
You got it. All right. Have a good day, guys. Bye, John.
Bye.
Talk to you later.